Homesteading inside of the city is very difficult. We got to check our soil quality. We got pesky neighbors, homeowners associations. How do we navigate all of that and be successful as a homesteader and be independent and self-sufficient? Well, no worries. I've brought in the expert, Mark Boyd, here to help us out. He has over 60 years experience of homesteading, and he's brought a wealth of knowledge. Today, he is going to be specifically talking to us about planning his urban homestead that he has in Metro Atlanta. If you have any questions that you want to ask Mark, this is the perfect time to leave them in the description down below. Our 7th episode that we're doing together is going to be a live Q&A where we are going to answer all the questions left for us down here in these comment sections. It's going to be an awesome opportunity to ask a lifetime homesteader a wealth of questions, and he's there to bring in the conversation for us. I'm super excited that he's here. He's not just an amazing homesteader, he's my dad. And I get so much inspiration for him. When you see the pictures here in a minute of his homestead and what he does inside the city, you're going to be mind blown. I am every time that I visit. So for now, let's head over to the conversation and let's have a great talk about developing and planning your urban homestead. I think what you do, though, is you also utilize that little space that you have. You have a good sized lot, but you're nowhere near using that entire lot. You're really compacting in. We did an episode a couple weeks ago. If you haven't checked it out, I'm going to put it in the show notes, so you can click right here. In that we talked about less is more. And I think your homestead is a prime example of when you do less, you get more.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about on our homestead that over to my right, there's all these, what used to be these massive rows. You know, you remember them. And like we did all this work, but yet we took away 80% of our garden and focused really on 20% of the space and hyper growing in 20% of the space. And we like quadrupled our vegetables this year. Right. And I think what you're doing as well really focuses in on your space. So I know you did research on your space because you've got everything dialed in that I wish I had figured out here, how shades and times of day. So talk to me a little bit about that, because I think when you're playing in like it happens out here, but you know, when we live out in the country, we could just chop down a tree.
Right.
But when you're in the city, that's not always an option. So when you were looking at your garden space, you know, how do you decide what goes where in relation to shade and sun, wind? You know, how does that play a factor into your urban homestead?
Okay, just to follow up with what he just said, I used to grow for most of my gardening life. I have always grown in ground, and I've used the single row method, maybe, you know, two rows together, and then the walking space. But I've done row gardening. I don't do any row gardening, and this year I made so much more than I have ever made in gardens that were probably 7, 8, 10 times the size of the gardening space I'm using, by the things that, you know, that I'll tell you that I've learned.
It's growing with a purpose. When you don't have all that extra space, I feel like you're just growing with a purpose, and you're not focused in as much on, oh, it's got to have X amount of inches in between. I think it comes into a lot of, oh, that's touching that. Okay. You know, there's something good about having it close in, and when it's close in a little bit tighter quarters, it doesn't grow as much weeds. It doesn't do as much. You know, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No.
I love that sentiment there. But talk to me about like that homestead planning.
In the planning, I actually draw out where I've put the raised beds, and we'll talk about how I constructed those and that kind of thing.
Hold on just a second,
The house, like I said, technically at the back of the house where the garden spot is located, that's a 3-story house. So the house is situated so that the sun comes up on the east on one end of the house, a little bit favoring the front of the house, front corner of the house, but the sun sets, and then the west favors the other end of the house, a little bit more exposed, but not real bad. But I use the house to provide me with shade. So I will plant things that need some shade in the heat of Georgia closer to the house, and then I use the tree line that's a little bit. For example, initially in the spring when they were first put out, I had the tomatoes. We'll talk about this in a few minutes, but I do part of my gardening in 5-gallon buckets, food grade, but 5-gallon buckets. And so I had them getting out more sun because it's cooler in the spring time and that kind of thing. But as we moved into Georgia, Georgia got really hot and humid and even dry at times. And so the good news about the way I do the 5-gallon bucket is I just moved them in closer to the big cedar tree that's there. The cedar tree provided the shade, and that's where they are right now. And I've still got tomatoes growing.
In November.
In November. I've got the heirloom tomatoes, those purple Cherokee tomatoes are still growing, and they're still producing. I also have moved some of the tomatoes and peppers up against the house, and they're very close to the house. Again, they're in 5-gallon buckets and other containers I could pick up and move. I'm just using the house as an advantage. So I watch to see where the shades are, and then the things that need more sun, like purple hull peas. Mississippi purple hull peas, they let me have some heat. They just need water and nutrients, and they'll keep producing. Butter peas the same way. They were the ones that I planted out in the full sun, and so that's kind of, depends on what I'm planning as to where I place it. That kind of thing. So.
I've noticed your methodology as I'm back there because I'm there maybe over the summer and I see the buckets in one place, and then it kind of gets, I'll come in maybe a couple months later, coming in for a birthday or something. I notice things are moving around. I think that's very key though. Let that guy pass. Sounded like a fart. That's for the outtakes.
Please.
I noticed though that when you have buckets back there that they're getting moved around, and you're able to kind of adapt to what the situation is giving.
I don't move them much, but I can move them.
Even your raised garden beds are technically movable. What are your raised garden beds made out of?
Well, let me tell you, I've tried several different methods to garden when we first moved there through these 25 years now that we've lived at this location. And my backyard, when the subdivision was built, they dumped all of their red clay that they dug up to build other houses apparently in my backyard. So it is red clay, and that means it's ooey gooey if it's wet, and it's concrete.
Concrete when it's dry.
If it's not. So I couldn't get grass to grow on it anyway. I kept having it sawed. I kept paying for somebody. I kept putting seeds out and that kind of thing. So finally I just decided, well, gardening I know, so I'm going to try it. So I tried to garden. I wasn't real successful. And so then I spent 1 year doing virtually nothing but straw bale gardening using wheat bales. If you haven't tried that, you need to try it. It is phenomenal. It's from that experience that I moved to what I built for this year, and that is raised beds using concrete blocks. I took and put those design right where I had the straw bale design.
You're right.
Because as the straw bales deteriorated, oh my goodness, black soil appeared. And so I just took that whole concept, and that's where I started, and then I added all the compost and nutrients. I was all around my neighborhood. Hey, you want somebody to clean your leaves up?
I was about to say, when I called
those leaves.
Yeah, when I called him the other day, and he was at his neighbor's house actually. Getting all the leaves to help break down for his compost.
And most of the time, people will tell you, if you do a look on YouTube and all, and I'm not trying to in any way critique them, but they say, well, to make leaf mold, it's got a couple of different names. To make compost is what you're after. It's going to take 6 months. Well, I've got a bed that I'm starting now for next spring, but the reality is it doesn't take 6 months if you do one thing, well, maybe a couple of things, and that is you mulch those leaves, you grind those leaves up. You want as many different varieties of leaves as you can. Give you another spiritual moment. Didn't know this, but in the course of my adventure, trying to figure out how to make my beds produce better and how to do this, all these leaves I've got all over my yard and are all over the neighbors that we were all looking as a plague. I happen to be the one where the wind whips through the community. I get 3 or 4 of my neighbors' leaves almost exclusively.
As a
Yeah.
teenager, I hated it because
Yeah.
the neighbors, everything
They-
would just automatic. Their yards would be so beautiful,
Yeah.
and then ours would just be covered in leaves.
So I mulched up those leaves, ground them up, using a lawnmower and bagging them and that kind of thing. And I learned in straw bales that the way you get a straw bale conditioned before you can plant it, you have to start about 6 weeks ahead of time. And the key is keeping the bale wet
Okay.
and using high nitrogen. You want something with high nitrogen that
Okay.
you put down on the bale and water it in.
Okay.
And you're going to put at least a gallon or more per bale to condition the bale.
Okay.
And that straw is going to drink in, that wheat straw is going to drink in that nitrogen. So eventually, after you let it sit a little while after you stop putting the nitrogen in, because it'll burn up your little plants if you don't,
Right.
then you can start planting, and you just pull out a little bit and put your plant down, or you can take like I did, and I actually just put some nice topsoil with a little bit of compost, got it started, put my seed in it, that kind of thing, and then the wheat bale will grow up. Well, I go back to my story. What do you do about leaves? How do you get them to break down? Wheat straw is virtually all carbon. You want to get the carbon is what's making up your compost as a whole. You still got to have a few more ingredients, the greens, the browns. I get it.
Right.
Well, if high nitrogen will break down the wheat straw bales, why won't it break down the leaves? Because they too are carbon.
Right.
So I will take and put a high dosage. I use urea. You can buy urea. I'm an organic type farmer. I'm not certified organic. I'm 66. I'm too old. I'm just growing it to give away and to eat it with my family. So I don't take that extra step. But I don't use any chemicals. I use everything natural. And I check it out before I purchase it, in other words. So I use urea, anything that's high carbon, that's natural, that's non-chemical, that kind of stuff. I'm going to use as much natural as I possibly can. And I will put a lot of nitrogen in there, water them, and about once a week, once every 10 days, I'll take a pitchfork and turn them
Kinda
over.
flip 'em over, yeah.
I'll put in any kind of greens that I can get, any kind of vegetable scraps. I'm the guy who will give you a 5-gallon bucket, food grade, with a lid that you usually can pick up from Home Depot or Tractor Supply, pretty cheap. And I'll give you one in exchange for if you'll just save your kitchen scraps. Vegetable scraps is what I'm after.
Right.
I don't take meat scraps or that kind of stuff. However, I will take your eggshells and that kind of stuff. And I collect them from family and neighbors and that kind of thing. And I go around once a week. I bring them a cleaned out one with a lid on it so they can, because I don't want any smells in their yard or in their house, whatever. And I collect that. That goes in that pile as well to provide me with the greens, the nutrients. And so that's how I did those raised beds.
Yeah.
So you've got the rest of the straw bales at the bottom. You've got some soil that I added on there, potting mix, that kind of thing. And then I just filled them up, and that's what I did. And so that's the raised beds. They are probably 2 concrete blocks wide, and then some of those will go 18 to 20 feet, the longest of the raised bed, and they are spaced out so that I've got probably 5 feet between the raised beds.
Okay.
And I've got several of those, and I've got it angled so that it points toward the sun. So it's longer toward the sun, because if you plant it this way and your sun's coming and going on this side, then you're going to have plants that are shading other plants.
Right.
So if you put anything tall, and tomatoes, beans, especially the ones you trellis, squash, that kind of stuff, you're going to have things that can't get sunlight. However, if you plant it the other way, they get morning sun,
Yeah.
they get afternoon sun, translated full sun.
Right.
So that's kind of my scheme of how I
like that.
do that.
I like that.
Isn't Mark great? You could tell he's passionate about what he's doing on his homestead. He has
inspired me beyond measure because he doesn't give excuses as to why he can't be self-sufficient. He's constantly figuring it out, molding the system on how it can benefit him. Yes, you can grow on a homeowners association. Yes, there is some give and take. Yes, it's not always as easy as just cutting up your yard and doing it what we get to do out here in the countryside. However, there are benefits to being able to do it inside of the city. And I think Mark laid them out pretty darn well. So with that, if you want to see the entire conversation, make sure that you can click up here. You're going to be able to see the full hour and a half unedited conversation. And there we're talking everything from his background into homesteading. We've got our intro into urban homesteading. We have this conversation that we just had. We're talking about his secret ingredient into his homestead. He really does have a secret ingredient on his homestead, and it's mind-blowingly cool. He does such an amazing job with it and breaking it down for us. If you want to see that entire conversation again, click up here and you will be able to see all of that in its entirety. If you want to, just like Jonathan, you intrigued me at secret ingredient. What could be the secret ingredient to his homestead? If you want to get to that, you want to find what that little morsel is, don't worry, I do too. We're going to have that conversation right up here. And so again, you can click on yes right here, and that'll send you on to the next part of this conversation. As always, be blessed. Have a great week. And if you want to connect with us deeper, there are two ways to do that. You can click on the links down below, and that's going to send you to our website. There you can sign up for an amazing mail letter. And so you will be able to learn about our homestead, what we've got going on behind the scenes, and all the work that we've been doing. Also, you can join our Reddit page. Yes, Homesteading Chef has a Reddit page called Homesteading Chef, and there we are developing a community of people that are there and get excited about homesteading and what we're doing both in the city or in the urban life. So make sure you click over there, join our community there. It's 100% free. It's no Patreon, none of that. It's all 100% community driven, and we'd love for you to join that page, ask questions, be a part of the conversation. And we'll see you next time in this next episode, whether you choose this adventure or you choose this adventure. And we'll see you next time here on Homesteading Chef.